Next on the news, a community on edge, fearing the migrant crisis will never end.
Whether they agree with the politics or not, people are doing whatever they can to help the hundreds of migrants who have landed here on Staten Island. I'm Jessica Easthope with the conditions and desperation they're facing.
Also, the White House threatening consequences for Saudi Arabia over an oil production cut that will increase gas prices. And
this child saved my life. It was time to save his. I wasn't going to just discard him.
She says she's alive because of her baby and prayer. We'll speak with Jessica Hanna, who was diagnosed with cancer during her pregnancy. Plus, he says he was just doing God's work, how a mayor jumped into action and saved a family. I'm Christine Persichetti. Current News starts right now. They're wandering the streets of Staten Island looking for food and work, going door to door asking for help. It's a humanitarian crisis that could be coming to a neighborhood near you. According to the mayor, every community in New York City will be getting a migrant shelter, and they won't have a warning. Residents of Travis are calling it insanity, but Jessica Easthope tells us they're doing everything they can to help.
There are about 300 migrants living here at the Holiday Inn Express and another hotel acting as emergency shelters on Staten Island. They came with nothing. They say they don't have enough food or clothing and that all they want to do is find work. This is how we communicated, using a phone to translate. The language barrier unable to hide the desperation of this father who said his son only has a little to eat. But people here are doing whatever they can.
¿Te gusta? Sí. Oh, tú eres lindo.
Lena Maldonado came Wednesday to drop off food, clothing, and toiletries.
We have things that others are in dire need of, so if we can give it, like, why not?
People stopped by all morning with supplies. One man who didn't want to be on camera is a parishioner and catechist at St. Michael's in Sunset Park.
What can we say and do? Just but only help and provide as much as we can.
He says his faith is driving him to help, but he can't do it forever.
I try to do the best I can for a fellow man. I could only do but so much. Faith does play a role. I can only see hope, love, and respect for these individuals as they seek asylum.
The two hotels are part of the city's 48 emergency shelters, housing more than 18,000 migrants. Mayor Eric Adams says as busloads keep coming, more shelter is needed, whether some neighborhoods welcome them or not.
This is a citywide crisis, and all of us are going to be impacted. And Staten Island is going to be impacted like the other 4 boroughs.
Eileen manages a commercial driving school in Travis. She's been collecting bags of clothing and giving them to migrants who walk by her business.
They're here now, so we have to help them. That's just the way that I was raised. I just think of how bad it is in their country that they had to come here.
The community in Travis is being pushed to the brink. People say the problem is now too big to ignore.
Whether you close the borders, whether you do so many other things, it's not going to stop. It's always going to have this problem.
This has to be evenly distributed throughout the whole 50 states, not just New York. You know, we're going to go bankrupt.
Tomorrow, I'll speak with Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis about federal solutions to the crisis, her efforts to stem the flow of migrants and speed up the asylum process. For now, the people here continue to rely on donations. In Travis on Staten Island, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Pope Francis delivered a passionate message over the weekend about just how important it is for the faithful to embrace migrants.
È scandalosa l'esclusione dei migranti. Anzi, l'esclusione dei migranti è criminale. Li fa morire davanti a noi. L'esclusione dei migranti è schifosa, è peccaminosa, è criminale.
The Holy Father made the comments on Sunday following a canonization mass. The Pope went on to say that the Church's 2 new saints fought against exclusion. Instead, they dedicated their lives to the service of the poor, migrants, and the sick. Meanwhile, schools across New York City are struggling to cope with an influx of 5,500 new migrant students. School officials say it's a challenging situation because many of the teachers don't speak Spanish. They also say there's no resources to help the situation, and parents say class sizes have risen from the usual 15 to 20 students. The superintendent for Diocese of Brooklyn Schools, Deacon Kevin McCormick, says they are doing whatever they can for the migrant children coming to their schools. In this week's paper, the tablet caught up with Deacon Mack as we pass the 1-month mark into this new school year and see if his top priorities entering into the new position have remained the same. Catholics from the Diocese of Brooklyn and the Archdiocese of New York combined communion and Columbus with a special Eucharistic procession. The procession was in honor of Columbus Day. Clergy, sisters, choir singers, and Catholic school students set off from Sacred Heart of Jesus Parish on West 51st Street. They eventually arrived at St. Patrick's Cathedral, where they met New York Cardinal Timothy Dolan, who led the group in benediction. The tablet has all things Columbus Day in this week's edition of the paper, including the big parade that happened this past Monday. This year's show of Italian pride was amid a renewed controversy as Albany pushes to change the holiday's official name to Indigenous Peoples Day. It also comes as statues of the Italian explorer are being taken down from public places. You can read all these stories and more by picking up a copy of the paper at your local church. But if you want to get future editions sent straight to you, just subscribe online at thetablet.org. Killings in New York City's subway system have skyrocketed to the highest level in 25 years, and that's despite a sharp decline in ridership. There have already been 7 killings in the subway so far this year. From 1997 through 2020, there have never been more than 5 killings every year, and subway ridership is still down about 57% since the start of the pandemic. A $50,000 fund has been set up to help bodega owners recover from losses from looting and shoplifting. It was set up by the trade group United Bodegas of America, and it covers losses that insurance won't cover. Owners would have to show surveillance video to prove their losses. The group is also asking prosecutors to increase sentences for those arrested to a minimum of 6 months. The White House and some lawmakers are threatening to punish Saudi Arabia for supporting oil production cuts. The OPEC Plus cartel says it will slash 2 million barrels a day starting next month, and that will trigger another rise in gas prices. Amy Kiley reports on the potential responses to the decision.
There will be consequences.
That's President Joe Biden's threat to Saudi Arabia. It comes after the oil-rich nation said it would cut production next month, along with other members of OPEC Plus.
It is Putin and Saudi Arabia against the United States.
Some lawmakers are already calling for specific consequences. Democratic Senators Richard Blumenthal and Ro Khanna have announced a bill that would stop all U.S. arms sales to Saudi Arabia for 1 year. Other countries could suffer under the oil cuts, too. The chief economist for the International Monetary Fund predicts this for next year.
People dealing with high energy prices and food prices, and so it's going to feel worse than where it is right now.
Saudi Arabia has a dismal record on human rights. U.S. intelligence believes its crown prince orchestrated the murder of journalist and U.S. resident Jamal Khashoggi. That's the same prince Biden fist bumped when he visited Saudi Arabia in July. The White House seems intent on recasting those optics now.
Since taking office, the president has been very clear that the United States needs a different sort of relationship with Saudi Arabia.
I think the president's been very clear that this is a relationship that we need to continue to reevaluate.
The president has been clear all along that we need a different sort of relationship with Saudi Arabia.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
While economists are concerned about the next year, let's take a look at the current pain drivers are feeling at the pump. Right now, the national average for gas sits at around $3.94 a gallon. New York City's average is actually lower than that at around $3.59 a gallon. Those numbers are a slight increase from the latest low for gas prices in New York since the war in Ukraine began. That was at around $3.48 on October 3rd. There's a lot more news headed your way. She is a breast cancer survivor who credits her unborn baby for saving her life. We'll speak with her next. Plus, New York State putting its money where its mouth is when it comes to supporting abortion providers. And the mayor who jumped into action when he saw a car filled with kids in the path of an oncoming train.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and tonight we have the story of a mom in Detroit who says her baby saved her life. She was diagnosed with terminal cancer when she was just 14 weeks pregnant, but refused to follow the doctor's advice to get an abortion and instead delivered a healthy baby boy. Mother of 4, Jessica Hanna, is cancer-free and joins us now to share her story. Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
Jessica, we are so happy to hear you and your son, who's now 1, are doing great. So tell us, how did your son save your life?
Well, I was in Canada at the time when I found the dent in my breast, which turned out to be cancer. But the problem was in Canada during the pandemic, healthcare was a little bit hard to get access of. And when they first looked at my dent, they actually misdiagnosed it. They misdiagnosed it as benign. And I went to it wasn't even a breast health center. It's whatever I could get at the time. And so I was excited. It was benign. And then we got pregnant with our 4th son. And that's what saved my life, because when I went to see the OB for that appointment, he asked me, well, what's new with you? And of course, I thought of that dent and I thought, you know what, now that I'm pregnant, maybe we should double check this. So had I not been pregnant, I never would have given it a second thought.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, your life was in danger here. You're finding out that you do have what they said was terminal cancer. You were advised to have an abortion, but you refused. Tell us why.
Well, they told me that the breast cancer was very, very extensive. It was all over my breast. So this was after surgery. We find out it's completely riddled in my breast, 13-centimeter tumor, 43 lymph nodes out of 43 lymph nodes positive. They told my husband I was likely terminal. Now, the thing was, because I was pregnant, they couldn't scan me, but it had appeared that there's nowhere else for the cancer to go but to my distant organs. And of course, termination is always on the table there, but I denied it completely because, first of all, I'm very pro-life. I believe that every life, whether in the womb or outside the womb, is sacred and it deserves life and is worthy of life. Second of all, this child saved my life. It was time to save his. I wasn't going to just discard him just so I could, figure out if I had terminal cancer, or if it was all over my body, or what was going on. Third of all, I'm also a pharmacist. I have a doctorate in pharmacy, and before I even consulted with doctors, I'm a big believer in being your own best advocate. And I did so much research into peer-reviewed articles. I consulted a Dr. Cardonic with the Pregnancy and Cancer Registry Network, who's worked with thousands of women who are pregnant with cancer. And I was surprised to find that I could undergo chemotherapy safely while pregnant with just a few modifications. And I also could do surgery. So these were all the reasons. But of course, the biggest reason is the sanctity of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you prayed throughout this whole experience, and you really are proof that prayer works. You named your child after Blessed Father Solanus Casey. Now, why did you ask for his intercession during this time?
So when the doctors had told my husband I was most likely terminal, my brother was very, very upset to hear this news. And one night he prayed for me very hard. And at the end of the prayer, he said, "Thank you, God, in advance, signed Bobby." And he said, "You know what? Why did I just pray that way? I normally don't pray that way." So he decided to go on his phone and just look up a TV show, any TV show, just to get his mind off things. He turned on a random app on his phone. He did not choose the programming. It turned out to be an episode of the Unsolved Mysteries, the very episode where Blessed Father Solanus Casey had healed a woman of breast cancer through his intercession. At the end of the show, they state that he is buried in Detroit. So then my brother says, "I need to look up this soon-to-be saint." He looks him up, and what does he see on Google? It says, "Blessed Father Solanus Casey, famous for saying, 'Thank God ahead of time.'" And he had just thanked God in advance for me. So we felt that this was divine providence, that God was saying, go to this tomb, ask for this soon-to-be saint's intercession, and all will be well. And that's exactly what I did. After every single chemo, I went to his tomb, I prayed at the tomb, and I begged for his intercession, and God delivered.
Yeah, so tell us about that. Right after the baby was born, you finally get the scan? Is that right? Okay.
So finally, I get to scan because you can't scan while you're pregnant. And my doctors had prepared me. They were expecting that there would be cancer in all other organs of my body, or at least somewhere else in my body. I did a CT scan of the chest and abdomen. It was clear. I did a bone scan. It was clear. To this day, they cannot find cancer in me absolutely anywhere.
Oh, wow, I'm getting chills when you're talking here. We're so happy that you are well and that your baby is healthy. Breast cancer survivor Jessica Hanna, thanks so much for being here and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
If you'd like to help other women fighting breast cancer, you can donate to the National Breast Cancer Awareness Foundation at nationalbreastcancer.org. Meantime, New York Governor Kathy Hochul has announced another $13.4 million in state funds is being dispersed for abortion funding. The grants will go to 37 providers of the procedure, including 64 clinical sites. The money is part of a $25 million support fund Governor Hochul announced in May following the leaked Supreme Court draft decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. Abortion is proving to be a key issue for voters in the upcoming midterm elections. It will be directly on the ballot in 5 states come November. In California, voters are being asked if abortion should be enshrined in the state constitution. Michigan and Vermont also amending their constitution for so-called reproductive freedom. Meantime, Kentucky wants to change their constitution to not protect abortion and prohibit state funding for it. Finally, in Montana, voters will decide on a pro-life bill that would declare babies born alive legal persons, especially after an attempted abortion. That bill would also punish medical providers who do not take action to preserve the life of the infants. Former Congresswoman and pro-lifer Tulsi Gabbard says she's leaving the Democratic Party. She cited a long list of reasons, including the party's hostility to people of faith. She made a statement saying, in part, any political party that is trying to erase the presence of God from every facet of public life and is hostile towards those who choose to worship God cannot be trusted to protect our inalienable God-given rights enshrined in the Constitution, and therefore should not be in power. The mayor of a small city in Georgia is being hailed a hero tonight. This after he saved a mom and her 3 children right before a train crashed into their car. As Lena Allen reports, he says God was on his side.
I couldn't let those babies sit there and get slaughtered by a train.
Mayor Eddie Daniels was on his way to work Saturday morning when he saw that a black SUV was stalled on the tracks with the train fast approaching.
I seen a lady in trouble, and I knew I had to do what I needed to do.
Daniels then jumped into action and helped the mom out of the car first. He moved to the back seat and found 3 kids, a 6-year-old, 3-year-old, and 1-year-old, who also needed his help. That's when the unthinkable happened.
I got the 2 small ones out. At that time, I seen the train, and the 6-year-old, I was pulling her out, and that's when the train hit.
Daniels remembers being caught between the train and truck, still managing to get the last child out. He showed me where the smashed truck landed just a few feet away from where it was impacted.
The impact of the train hit, it knocked the truck back around that way, and that's where you see those skid marks at over there.
Even with 8 stitches on his head and a broken ankle, Daniels said he's thankful the family made it out alive.
So now I'm just doing God's work. That's what we're supposed to do. And they told me I was a hero. I said, I don't feel like a hero. I just feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, what the people elected me to do. That was a little above the calling, but I do what I got to do.
He tells me he would never have imagined this would happen during his 2nd term as mayor, but is thankful he was at the right place at the right time.
Terrible scene, but we was able to save some lives.
That was Lena Allen reporting. Police say the mom is facing charges including driving under the influence and child endangerment. Still to come on Currents News, he's opened for big artists like Katy Perry. Now he's headlining his own concert in the Diocese of Brooklyn. How you can see Christian singer Mike Donahue. And the newest employee at this pediatric hospital has no feelings, but is making kids feel comfortable. We'll explain. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3746. 888-3122. We'll be right back. A big Christian music star is coming to Brooklyn.
Every sunrise, every night sky.
That's Mike Donahue. You may know him as the frontman for the award-winning multi-hit Christian band 10th Avenue North. Now Donahue will be playing his new solo album, Flourish, at the Emmaus Center in Williamsburg tomorrow night. Currents News and The Tablet spoke with Donahue ahead of his performance. He spoke about a common question he gets as an artist of faith. When did you know this was God's will?
You know, being on stage, especially in a religious sort of setting, like spiritual music, you just have a lot of people go, when? I go, what when? They go, when did you know this was God's will for your life? And I always look at them, I go, I don't. They look at me very strange. I go, I mean, God's will for my life is not an occupation. His will for my life is his life for my will.
And be sure to follow Currents News and The Tablet online to see the full interview with Mike Donahue, which will be posted on Thursday. And if you want to see Mike's show at the Emmaus Center, just go to emmausbrooklyn.org/events. Again, that concert will be on Thursday, October 13th. Doors open at 7 p.m. Finally tonight, hospitals can be a scary place for children, so some pediatric centers around the world are bringing in a high-tech, friendly face to make them feel at ease. Jim Morelli introduces us to Robin, the comfort robot.
Robin.
Yes, Kendra?
I'm a little nervous today. I have to have an x-ray.
It can't take the place of humans, it can't take the place of dogs. But at UMass Memorial Children's Medical Center, the staff sees an important role for their newest hire, Robin the robot.
When kids are here, they are nervous. They're anxious about what's going to happen. There's a lot of new faces. There's a lot of equipment.
Robin is not just another piece of equipment. Last year, Time magazine named the interactive robot one of the best inventions of 2021, praising Robin's ability to put sick children at ease.
Robin is preloaded with software and anticipates the kinds of questions that kids might ask.
And Robin asks the kind of questions that can lead to engagement with pediatric patients.
Jim, what is your favorite animal?
Easing loneliness, alleviating fear, these are some of the immediate benefits of an interaction with Robin. But evidence suggests deeper benefits may be possible.
Initial research for Robin the robot actually showed decreased admission times, increased compliance in a medical setting for things like getting out of bed and taking medication.
UMass Memorial is the first children's hospital on the East Coast to acquire Robin, and only the third in the U.S.
My favorite animal is the chicken.
And Robin's favorite food is pizza, if only they could eat it.
You got it! Great job!
So cool. That was Jim Morelli reporting. Robin is expected to remain at UMass Memorial Children's Medical Center for at least a year. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.